And now it is my deep honor to introduce to you Professor Karen Fredriksen Goldsen, who, with her stellar team, made all of this possible. Dr. Karen Starler's work over decades has had a tremendous impact on our community. She is the Huyman Endowed Professor and Director of Healthy Gen Center and the LGBTQ+ Health and Longevity Center at the University of Washington. Dr. Karen is an internationally recognized scholar, and in our community and others, she has made visible health inequities across invisible yet at-risk and resilient communities. Dr. Karen leads multiple landmark federally funded studies and is the author of more than 6 books and over 100 journal publications. Dr. Karen has received the University of Washington-wide Outstanding Teaching Award, the national inaugural NIH Sexual and Gender Minority Distinguished Investigator Award, the Gerontological Society of America Award for Healthy Aging, and PBS's inaugural Next Avenue's Top 50 Influencer in Aging. Dr. Karen has now led the first ever statewide report of the LGBTQ Washingtonians of all ages that she will present today. Thank you, Dr. Karen, for the commitment and difference you have made in our communities. Please take it away.
It's so good to be here together to celebrate. There's so much excitement. We'll soon have a transition of power, the first Black and Indian woman as Vice President of the United States of America. This reminds me, several decades ago, when I gave my first talk on LGBTQ aging, it was the same week that the president at the time made the declaration that the homosexual party was over. Now I'm still mad about that because I don't know who had that party and why I wasn't invited. I'm thinking about that today because it reminds me once again, change does happen. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by thanking my incredible team at the University of Washington. 3 decades ago, when I first began this work, I met Tricia, an 86-year-old lesbian who told me she had been in a relationship for 50 years when her life partner died. In her words, she said, "I have no one. We never told anyone we were together." I witnessed her deep, solitary grief. She shared, "I go to the local center because I don't have anywhere else to go." But she never gave up, and she also lightly joked, "I have fallen in love with the piano player. She hasn't noticed me yet, but she will." I love grit with wit. When I've shared this story, I generally get one of 2 responses. One is what a gay public official said to me. "I'm glad that our elders no longer die or grieve alone." But is this so? Are we somehow immune from elders being alone after a lifetime of bias? And does this also happen in politically progressive areas? The other response I get is what John, a middle-aged bisexual man, shared. I really know that it was bad for older generations, but I'm so pleased that things are better now for those younger generations. Now, is this the case? Are younger generations doing better than older generations? So that is why we're here today, to explore real LGBTQ experiences across generations, looking and thinking about similarities, differences, strengths, challenges, and perhaps most importantly, intersections across and within our very diverse communities. Who are LGBTQ people in the state of Washington, and what are our experiences? It's equally important to ask ourselves, why are we mostly invisible in our state reports? Why don't we have an existing snapshot of our community? Invisibility creates vulnerability. So, along with 45 different community partners and our research team from the UW Schools of Social Work, School of Nursing, School of Medicine, and the School of Public Policy, we sought to answer these very questions. And today, for the very first time, we now have an accurate snapshot in the Washington State LGBTQ Equity and Health Report. We are diverse. Over 1,845 LGBTQ Washingtonians participated in this project. And good quality research is a way to paint a very vivid, real picture of lives. Using population-based data also, we found that lesbians, gay men, bisexual women, and men, they are younger and they are more likely to be people of color than heterosexuals in our state. In our study, 1/3 of the LGBT participants identify as queer and sexually diverse. Over a fifth identify as trans or transgender. 22% consider themselves gender diverse or non-binary. Our multiplicity and intersectionality reflect the fabric and vibrancy of our communities. Our communities in the past and present are resilient, powered by the resilience that built and nurtured them and their communities. In our project, 90% of LGBTQ people in the state feel engaged in their communities, and the participants shared many of their experiences. Riley, 69, recounted, "I remember in 1978 in Seattle, we marched against Initiative 13, and we turned the wave when there was a powerful movement underway across the country to repeal all sexual orientation, anti-discrimination protection measures. We turned it around." Ellie, 31, accounted the days and weeks they attended the Black Lives Matter protests, sharing with me and us, night after night, my thirst for racial justice was intensified. It's my children's future that we are marching for. But waves of trauma have cast and continue to cast a long shadow on this community. Persecution and criminalization, lobotomies, castrations, AIDS. Many of us have already survived a pandemic. The youth suicides, the Orlando mass murders, trans murders. When I gave a talk last year in Houston, I was stunned to learn that 28 trans women of color were murdered there last year, an epidemic of violence. These are quotes shared by Anya Prasad, a doctoral candidate who studied with us last year and is working in our research on violence and the bias and the impact of bias and violence in the lives of trans older adults and all LGBTQ older adults. In our study, participants accounted for the traumas they have faced. Alex, a 19-year-old gay man, recounted the experience of conversion therapy. As he shared, "I was forced by my parents to be who I was not. There was no choice. I was kidnapped." Our project found that last year, more than half had experienced victimization, and more than 45% were bullied in the past year, with over 60% bullied by their families. This is in our state. Compared to heterosexuals and cisgender people in the state of Washington, LGBTQ people experience elevated health disparities. And the strongest predictor of these disparities is the historical and contemporary trauma and biases they have and continue to encounter. They experience elevated risks of disability, poor physical and mental health. Trans and gender diverse people and LGBTQ veterans have high rates of suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts. There are real economic disparities in these communities, despite the myth that the LGBTQ population and the myth that especially gay men are all economically advantaged. This simply is not the case. Lesbians and bisexual women and gay and bisexual men across the state, on average, they're more likely than heterosexuals to live in poverty at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Trans and those gender diverse are also more likely to experience poverty and unemployment, which is further exacerbated for trans and gender diverse people of color. More than half of the participants are experiencing housing burden and financial insecurity, with elevated risks among those Hispanic, Latinx, Black, Native American, and multiracial, especially among those ages 18 to 29. 15% have experienced homelessness multiple times in their lifetime. 42-year-old Jessie shared, "I'm on the brink of homelessness due to the impossible housing market, and I'm not able to afford rent consistently." More than 1 out of 10 LGBTQ participants are business owners, primarily small businesses with only 1 employee. About 1/5 of these business owners, although they're so rarely recognized, 1/5 have experienced discrimination as a business owner. Trans and bisexual people in our state are more likely to live with others, and they have the largest social networks. And these are strengths. And we have to elevate the strengths and the resistance and the resilience in these communities. But many of the elders in our study are experiencing social isolation. Many had strong networks. I mean, they built our communities. But with advancing age, many cannot or do not receive support from their peers, and their worlds are constricting. These elders are less likely to have children, less likely married or partnered, and more likely to live alone than heterosexuals. And it's not because they're not married or don't have children, but where is the safety net? One finding in our study is that young people have comparable levels of social isolation, which was a surprise to me, which is why we are committed to building bridges, linking lives, so all in our community are not alone. Tina shared, I'm 62 years old and I pass reasonably well, so I have become invisible in public generally. However, working with the trans and gender diverse youth community is heartbreaking. There's so little support in the schools, healthcare, and services for them. Yes, now we are in the context of COVID-19, and it's having a grave impact. Although not our first pandemic, it's creating even further isolation. We have investigated the impact of COVID-19, and the results are profound. Beyond the increasing isolation and beyond health ramifications, many are having serious difficulty in their personal relationships. Invisibility creates vulnerability. Relentless waves of trauma have and still do surround us. Our resilience and resistance through our communities, within our communities, joining together. It's been the most potent tool, and it will continue to be so. And that is why impact is so significant. How do we create a safety net when worlds and connections constrict? How do we ensure support for one another? Our work is about impact and innovation, about bridging the gap between science and service. We developed Gen Pride and the Healthy Gen Center, which are now both receiving King County funding for more LGBTQ programming. It's a collaboration. We've also developed the world's first memory loss program for LGBTQ older adults. It's funded by the National Institutes of Health and the National Institute on Aging. It addresses those unique risk factors in the lives of LGBTQ older adults. Our research first illuminated that elders in our community need affordable housing, a place they can call home. Based in large part on our research and analysis, according to Mayor Durkin, the City of Seattle and the state are now funding the first ever affordable housing. This is a project of Gen Pride and Community Roots Housing, and it's going to build community's first affirming affordable housing. Its location is on Broadway in the historic gay neighborhood where so many have been displaced. And our most recent innovation, we just received funding from the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid and the state of Washington to develop the first evidence-based training for nursing homes across Washington state to ensure LGBTQ seniors can be visible and that they are included. Today, we will hear about experiences within specific BIPOC communities. We're also going to enjoy engaging entertainment. And later in the event, we're going to hear about our new program to reduce social isolation. Okay, I see a few questions have come in. I have received one question from Sarah. And that question is, I know that victimization is impacting these communities, but what about more implicit or other types of ways we're treated? Sarah, this is a really good question. We do know that while victimization is a very strong predictor, we look at differing types of bias and discrimination. And one is that the ongoing insults, the jokes. This has a wear and tear, and it also has a very detrimental effect on people's health. And we look both at implicit types of discrimination, but we also look at the way that interacts with biological factors. including through allostatic load. Because again, it is that wear and tear that can be so damaging.